I don't know if I'm actually ready.
I don't think you are.
I got my coffee, but then I'm trying out this new mix-in called Mortal Hydration. I think, is that what it's called? I mean, that's the name of the company. So, have I talked about the whole Gatorade thing here?
Did you or did you not? You told me about something with Gatorade, but I don't think we've talked about it on the show.
I don't know. It's probably not even worth talking about on the show. Whenever I sweat pretty good, Daniel. I have a really good cooling system, as they say.
I do feel like that's the case.
This almost feeds into my pre-show topic. It's not really a topic, it's just pre-show. Anyway, I've been using the noon hydration tablets for if I'm doing a long run or bike or whatever.
Spelled N-U-U-N.
Yeah, and so not an ad, but they're fine. I like them because they're really low on there's no sugar.
Yeah,
they're not
But that's also kind of a red flag if you're looking for energy.
Yeah, so if you're doing anything endurance-wise, you're going to go bike for 4 hours or something stupid.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of sugar is justified.
You kind of need the carbs. You need the carbs right before, or else your body's going to run out of, glycogen after about an hour or hour and a half. You're going to start, you just kind of bonk, as they say.
Is that what they say? Is that the term they use?
I think so.
Okay.
Anyway, so I've been doing noon, but then I had the noon endurance. And then I've recently switched to mix in Gatorade, just straight up Gatorade, which is one of those things where it's Gatorade, whatever. Everyone knows what Gatorade is. Mm-hmm. I'm going to use a real hydration technology. And I've switched to Gatorade because it actually just does better for me. And it was the weirdest thing. It was it's a big change. It's a big change in my life because I'm doing all of this training for my half Ironman. And so I'm I made the switch to Gatorade. People are shut up. Stop talking to me. But
it sounds like it wouldn't matter. And it also seems like Gatorade's the one that everybody's heard of. You would think, oh, it's not any better than these off brands or these other brands. It's just it's the one with the biggest marketing budget. But you're saying that it actually was better for you.
I've noticed a difference. And I think maybe part of it is the fact that there's so much freaking sugar in it. The first ingredient is sugar. It's 40 grams of carbs.
That's what you need. When you're drinking it for its intended purpose, not just because oh, it's a hot day, I'm going to have some Gatorade.
Yeah.
But when you're actually doing activity, you need sugar.
Yeah, no, when I'm losing a liter of water and a liter of fluid an hour plus salt, it's I need the carbs and I need the, and so for that it makes sense. Mm-hmm. Anyways, for the race, the Ironman is switched to using Mortal Hydration as their hydration partner from Gatorade.
Of course, they have a hydration partner.
They all have hydration partners. Daniel,
do you have a hydration partner? I guess it's Gatorade.
Right now it's Gatorade.
Yeah, but you're trying this new one.
And so it came in the mail today. I bought a pack of the flavor that I got was margarita salty because that sounded good. Yeah. And I just took my first sip of margarita salty because I'm trying this out because I've heard some people they use the stevia instead of actual sugar, which I have feelings about.
A little skeptical on that.
I'm why if you're I need the sugar and the carbs. Yeah. Why are we putting fake sugar in this? You should give me the real stuff.
Yeah, doesn't seem like the time for that.
I'm gonna be burning freaking 4,000 calories. Come on. Anyways, so I'm gonna try it tomorrow, but I'm trying to pre-hydrate. And
so I was kind of curious.
I wanted to kind of give it a test today under non-duress so that I don't run into any issues while biking 45 miles tomorrow.
Well, and I am kind of curious, what you've got going on right now, or what your plan is for the next, let's say 3 to 4 hours, because you're drinking, this mix-in hydration stuff. You're kind of making a face right now too.
It's fine. It almost has not like a saline taste to it, but how sometimes whenever you drink water that's a little salty or a sports drink that's salty, it's kind of like Pedialyte, where it has that really soft feeling to it. It's got that going on.
What I really want to know, though, is why you have that as well as a pretty large coffee. What do you?
I need the coffee because I'm podcasting.
Ah, I see.
And then
what are you going to do after this? You're
going to go. I'm going to go swim.
Okay.
I have to go swim 2,000 yards.
So the coffee's for right now, and the energy drink is for 2 hours.
It's not an energy drink. It's an hydration solution, but I mean that in the chemical sense because I mixed it together, and so it's a solution.
Yep.
Science.
Welcome back to the Camera Gear Podcast. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Lucas.
And we're here today to talk about the gear, software, and techniques we use to shoot photos and video.
You know, I had a whole pre-show planned about outer space and the fact that today's the summer solstice. But I guess we're not even going to talk about that.
I guess not. Too much talk about hydration solutions.
It's funny to me. It's so funny because it's a solution in both ways. You got your S1 Mark II.
I did.
Like 2 freaking days ago.
I would say it shipped faster than I expected it to because I think they had said end of June. Mm-hmm. Anytime I hear end of June, I'm thinking Fuji, where they say like first half of 2024 and it's like, June 30th. And so when they said end of June, I thought it would be June 30th at the earliest. But turns out it shipped on, what day was that?
Who knows?
I think it shipped on the 15th. Yeah. So I already have it.
And you haven't even connected a lens to it. Haven't barely touched it.
Yep.
Just way more restrained than I have. I would have shirked all my responsibilities. Yep. Mm-hmm. I would have not slept. I would have said, you know what? I'm pretty busy right now, but if I can sacrifice one thing, it's sleep to play with this camera.
Yep. Oh, this weekend is the time.
Which is why we're not even going to talk about it.
Yep. It's going to have to wait till next week when I've actually had time to connect a lens to the camera.
We're not even going to do a live Lucas review of Daniel's new camera. Nothing.
Yep.
None of that.
That'll be good for the next episode.
Maybe next episode. Yeah. Maybe. Who knows?
Anything. I mean, depends if I've connected a lens by then.
All right. And this next thing here, it says, Daniel also loves deals. And there's 2 days of deals left.
That's true.
By the time this episode comes out, the deals will be long gone.
Yes. Should we talk about all that, though?
Yes, Daniel. Talk about how many deals you love and why I still need to buy a 23mm 1.4 before tomorrow's over.
Yep. So
tomorrow.
I mean, the real story here, I think, is just that it was a great decision for me to get into L-mount because I've gotten some great deals on L-mount stuff.
The Lady Luck has shined her light upon you. And the deals have come your way.
It's absolutely true. I mean, most people listening to this probably remember a few months ago I bought the S9 and got that like crazy deal where I was getting just like free lens after free lens. And
like 2 months back, you had 0 L-mount.
That's true.
Now you have all the L-mount.
I have 7 L-mount lenses right now.
Like that have cumulative cost you like $10.
I didn't pay full price for most of it. I think I bought 2 lenses at full price, the Sigma 45 and the Panasonic 18-40. But yeah, so this S2 or S1 Mark II, I pre-ordered it the day it came out, May 13th, I think. It shipped on June 16th. It was it was June 16th. So it was like the day before B&H's Build Expo, BILD, which I guess is like their big like summer party thing. And they had a bunch of deals for that, and most of those deals were active on Monday. And, my camera shipped. I had already paid for it back in, I had put in my payment information back in May and like agreed to the price, but they didn't charge my card until this past Monday whenever it shipped. And I just happened to get on B&H's site, honestly, because I was curious to see if that camera was out of stock, like if they had sold through their pre-orders. And I noticed they had some deals on that camera. And not only did they have a coupon on the camera itself, but they also were doing an extra 10% off if you paid with your Paybu card, which is the B&H store card, which I did for the free tax. And so I decided to try and get those discounts. And I called them, and I was on the phone for about 2 minutes, talked to somebody who was very nice, and just said, hey, like I pre-ordered this. My card was charged this morning. I see you have all these deals, like anything you guys can do. And they put me on hold, came back and said, yeah, we'll refund you that $463.
Boom.
So
yes,
that was a great spent 2 minutes, getting $463 off of a brand new S1 Mark II. And then they had other deals for this Build Expo, and I kept sending them to you.
I mean, there's a version of my future where I regret this moment in that I'm like, it's like maybe in the future I buy an S1R Mark II. Like maybe that's what my life looks like in a year from now. Daniel has forced me to move into L mount,
It could happen.
and I need an S1R Mark II.
Yep.
And what if buying a new S1R Mark II with a super cool bag and a 128 gigabyte SD card doesn't cost $2,600 after all the discounts are applied?
Yep. Yeah, that deal is incredible. Like the S1 Mark II is a $3,300 camera.
Mm-hmm.
If you buy just the camera, I think their deals get it down to like $2,800 maybe. But for some reason, they have this deal where you get it with a bag and an SD card. And in that deal, after all the discounts and stuff, the camera works out to like $2,678. I think
That's after tax and everything.
Yeah, that's like shipped to your door for that price. It's crazy.
It's too good.
It
Like
really
it's
is.
I just want it. I don't have any L lenses.
Yep.
I just want it so bad.
Mm-hmm. And they also, I mean, a lot of these same deals were applying to lenses as well. And I knew I needed a 70-200 for event stuff. I wanted to get the Panasonic one. And the MSRP for that lens is, I think, $2,300. It had been on sale previously for less than that, but like the actual like manufacturer price, $2,300. With all of the deals they were running, and this was again a case where for some reason getting it in a kit with a UV filter was like substantially cheaper than buying just the lens by itself.
Gotta get those kits, man.
No idea why that makes sense, but like after all the discounts on that, I got that lens after tax and everything for $1,622.
Nice.
So that's again like, you know, what, $650 off MSRP.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it was a lens I knew I was going to buy anyway. I got a brand new one for that price. Like very, very good deal. So I was very pleased.
I'm just so mad at how good this deal is.
Yeah, I feel like I was thrilled getting the S1 Mark II for that much off MSRP, like as a brand new camera. But I think the S1R Mark II deal is even better. Like
I'm looking at this at $2,819. You get like freaking, like so much off.
Yep.
Like so much. You get $478 off, and you don't have to pay taxes because of that pay boo.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't even.
I don't even know what the 2819 is because it should be cheaper than that. There's some.
I mean, I'm just looking at my cart right now. I could just hit place order.
Your finger could just slip right now.
Oh, whoops! Look what happened. Well, maybe I should hit review order just in case.
Yeah, just
see where those discounts go.
Get you even closer to.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. I mean that's a really good price for a full frame 44 megapixel camera.
Yeah. That I need.
That you need. Yeah. In addition to that, I got a Samsung 4 terabyte T7 Shield for a total price of $121.
That's pretty good.
It's a very good deal. And a CF Express card reader. Those weren't discounted that much.
Well, these are all things you need, right?
They were all
because
things I needed.
You had the S1 too, and like you need a CF Express card for it.
Yeah.
And why not get 4 and a reader for it?
Yeah. I mean,
and
just why not?
It can record to the SSD. Like if you're gonna shoot that ProRes RAW externally to an SSD.
Yep.
I mean, you need that 4 terabytes.
Well, honestly, what I'm curious about with the SSD is testing that feature where you can offload footage from the CF Express.
Sure.
Because I could see us using that on shoots.
Yeah. So. I'm just saying. Yeah. Maybe you needed it.
Maybe.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah. It feels to me like, I don't think this is true for every camera brand, but definitely with L mount and probably for some of the other ones too. I really think that unless you need it right then, you should wait for some type of sale because it seems like all of these companies, like whether it be the manufacturer or retailers, seem like they all run sales periodically, and you can really save a lot of money if you wait for the right deal.
I think we're going to have a serious conversation about whether or not we're actually going to buy Pixis cameras.
Yeah.
Because maybe I have to buy this camera right now.
Emergency podcast where Lucas buys an S1R Mark II live on air because the deal is so good.
Because the deal's too good. That's not happening. Yeah. I'm just saying this goes through Sunday, right? Because
the 22nd.
Because they're going to take a break tomorrow for Shabbat, right? From like 7 to 7 or something, right?
Yeah. It ends at about, for our time, about 7 p.m.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. I think for me, I was like, I'm willing to switch to L mount either way because we've talked on this show many times. I feel like I'm happier with the way Panasonic cameras work, and I think for what I do, it will work better.
Yeah, I'm surprised it took this long.
Yeah, I mean, but here we are. And for me, it feels like I've already got now like this pretty substantial set of L mount lenses. If I was going to buy some sort of video like cinema camera type thing, which we all know I'm interested in doing, I mean, I'm gonna want something L mount because I already have so many good lenses for it. And the Pixis definitely makes a lot of sense. So I really feel like it comes back to where we see our business going, because we know we can do plenty of good work with the S1R Mark II and the Fujis. I mean, we haven't really been limited by them, but I guess it's a question of whether we see that as something we would actually do.
Yeah, I mean, I think this dovetails pretty well into a topic that's a couple down. So I'm going to go ahead and like shuffle our notes here for a second, and I want to just go ahead and talk about that Blackmagic camera for a smidge.
That Blackmagic.
You know what I'm talking about, Daniel? I'm talking about that 12K sensor.
Yeah, you are.
So I was reading on whatever this website's called, Yum Cinema.
Yeah, Yum Cinema.
Yum. Anyways, I don't know. It's I think they're pretending to be a cinema magazine, but they're not actually. It's just a website. But I ran across like one of their articles, and I was like, I'm just going to keep checking out this website because they post things. And they had this thing that was talking about a couple of the patents for Blackmagic, and I thought it was interesting. More from a concept of how they're using these patents, and less of a concept of the fact that the patents exist.
Mm-hmm.
On a previous episode, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 episodes ago, who knows? We talked quite a bit about the Ursa 12K and then the Pixis 12K, because it was like had just come out, and we talked about the RGBW sensors and all this sort of thing.
Which I think you're about to say, like, that's actually a unique sensor, which we thought was really cool at the time, and still is. I think it's one of the most compelling things about that camera.
Yeah, for sure. And so this article, which came out this month, came out in June, right? It's not like an old article, and they're just kind of hashing through information that we all kind of already knew. But camera companies file patents all the time, and the distance between the patent filing and it becoming a real technology or a real product is usually between like 5 years and eternity. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they'll just file it for the lulz.
Oh yeah, there's so many rumors that we see where it's like this company, like Panasonic had one for electronic variable ND. Like where's that? We haven't seen that on anything.
Yeah, where is that? Maybe it's in the S1H Mark II.
Yeah, could be.
Maybe. Who knows? That's why they haven't released it yet.
For all I know, it's in my S1 Mark II.
Have you checked?
You haven't
turned it on. You don't even know.
Yeah.
Anyways, so there was a 2019 patent and then a 2023 patent, and the 2023 basically just sharpened the 2019 patent. Mm-hmm. And it's everything that's in the 12K sensor, right? It's everything that we're seeing in the Blackmagic 12K that's in the Ursa and then now coming out in the Pixis. And in this patent, it talks about how there's common bare sensors, and that they want to do this thing where they're doing what's it called? Wideband and narrow band pixels within the pixel array. We talked about this before, how that's like an RGBW sensor and the W. Those are essentially, if you have a narrow band pixel array, like the R is focusing on a narrow band, a light spectrum, where it's only getting red or only getting green or only getting blue.
Yeah.
And a wideband is where it's just wider than that. And so it picks up more of the light spectrum, not really specifying how much more of light spectrum. Is it all of it? Is it just a chunk of it? But because it's mixing light, it's getting a mix of colors, so it's basically a white photo site. And this patent talks about how if you do this, you can create dual luma maps, and you can get a more sensitivity and lower luma noise, not chroma noise necessarily, but lower luma noise out of the image, because you can get this more dynamic range off of having these wideband maps, and then you can get the chroma data out of the narrowband maps, and you can merge them together and do this composite picture that is effectively more dynamic range, more details and contrast within certain tones, so you can get improved color tones, better HDR, improved brightness, more lower noise with smaller photo sites, and all this sort of stuff. And it's a kind of an interesting pattern of reading through why they're doing it and what it means, and reading it now. It's this is literally just the 12K sensor that's in the Ursa Mini 12K or whatever, or the Ursa Cine 12K.
Yeah.
They're in something weird with filter kernels. I don't even know what that means, Daniel.
Filter kernels.
I don't even know.
We'll have to look that up at some point.
Yep. So I mean, it's really interesting as far as reading through, and it's here's some dual luminance image streams and how we're combining them and blah blah blah. But Blackmagic filed these patents. They developed this sensor, and I had kind of been assuming like this is just the sensor that's in these cameras is like standard. Kind of we talked about like why it's cool, but I just kind of assumed like they worked with Sony made the sensor or whatever. The best I can tell, because they won awards from the Premier Design Awards for like some Australian design award thing, whatever, like a magazine, I don't know. Blackmagic designed this sensor. They designed the technology. They patented the technology. And from what I can tell, they're manufacturing this sensor in Australia themselves.
Interesting.
And they had to like refine the manufacturing process because like initially if one photo site failed, they had to trash the whole sensor. So they like have modified the manufacturing process in order to like get higher yields so they can charge less for the sensor.
Interesting.
And like thinking really hard about like how they're producing these things economically and how they're designing them. And like,
well, and that might be why it first came out on the Ursa 12K, which is Ursa Cine, which is an expensive camera, but then they were able to drive that the camera price way down with the Pixis 12K.
Yep. But I found this whole article and then kind of digging into it a little more interesting. We've already talked about how I think like the way that they're doing the 6x6 arrays in that sensor in order to do more interesting version of binning and how you can get these amazing read speeds off of this sensor because of the way that they're designing it. And like you can read the patents as far as like why the way the technology allows you to get faster read speeds with more dynamic range, even though you have smaller photo sites. It's like, oh, that's super, super interesting. And it's like, wow, Blackmagic is basically like it doesn't sound new, but like they're pioneering this technology.
Yeah.
And they're building this technology to bring it into cameras that are really economical. And it's not like they're just filing the patents. And so it feels like, especially with the Pixis 12K, they're like the way that they're positioning themselves and trying to kind of push into like the cinema market and make them more economical, but two, compete with like your Venices and your Aries and become more of a premium cinema brand, not just like live broadcast brand. I'm curious what you think about, now we talked a little bit more about this like patent and how like this has been something that Blackmagic is pushing for and planning for 6 years, and that is now finally kind of coming true and coming to plan. What does the next 6 years look like for them? Do you think like this is okay, we finally got that first step, now we have the cameras out, like let's see where it goes?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I said this before when we talked about this camera and sensor, but it feels like this is kind of an inflection point for Blackmagic, where I've always felt like their cameras have always been a good value, and they've always had good specs, at least on paper. And people have always said that their cameras have like a certain look to them. But I still feel like, when you've looked at stuff like their sensor performance in their past cameras, like let's say in something like the Pocket 4K or whatever, it just like it really hasn't been that impressive, like in terms of dynamic range and all that. And so it hasn't felt like you've really gotten that much more with their cameras. And so another thing that you and I have always talked about is that it feels like it almost has felt like their cameras are kind of an afterthought. Like they care more about getting you into their workflow. And it's almost like the camera is just like a necessary part of this pipeline. We're like, okay, you got to capture the footage some way. And the camera is like just a tool that you can use to capture Blackmagic RAW that you can then like edit and resolve and use all their other cool products. And it kind of feels to me like with this new sensor and seeing it in cameras like the Pixis that are actually attainable by regular people, I think it's a big step for them. And it feels like now they're like, they have all that workflow stuff built out. They've built up Resolve as this like really well respected color grading tool. And now they're actually releasing cameras that have meaningful improvements in terms of the sensor over some other things that exist. And I think it's going to be really popular. I think a lot of people are going to want that Pixis 12K, and that may give them some good momentum to keep kind of building out that lineup. Like maybe they can take that same technology. Maybe there's a way to do it at a lower resolution to where they can have like a 6K product at a lower price point. Maybe they have something in between the Pixis and the Ursa Cine. I don't know, but like I think they're going to keep using that and keep building out cameras with it. And this is just the first one. I would think it would improve from here. So I don't know. I'm pretty positive on the whole thing. I think they've got like they have a good road ahead of them, I feel like.
To me, it seems like they wouldn't necessarily go lower than that 12K. The way that because they've arranged it in 12K and the way that they have those bins on that sensor, I mean, it can treat those pixels like large 6K pixels.
That is true.
And basically just shoot in 6K if you need to.
The only thing I would think would be for price reasons if they were able to make it cheaper, but maybe that doesn't even make it cheaper.
Yeah. And like then the rolling shutter and the read speed at that 6K resolution is still incredible.
Yeah, yeah. Which I think is one of the most interesting things about that sensor is that you don't really give anything up if you shoot in a lower resolution.
It seems like to me that Blackmagic is starting to position themselves as a technology leader in a way that, like, we see it from Sony a lot, and we see Canon coming out with cool things. And obviously, Arri releases this, like, oh, here's our first camera in 5 years, and it has 17 and a half stops of dynamic range, and it breaks all the tests because it's the most dynamic range capable sensor you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Hashtag German technology. But I think that, for a while there, it did kind of feel like Blackmagic was just trying to funnel you into their ecosystem and they just had cameras. Whereas now with the Ursa 12K, 17K, and the Pixis 12K, it really feels like they are pioneering imaging technology in a way that they weren't before. And they're kind of the only one out there who owns the stack in that way.
Yeah, for sure.
Where you can have, they're obviously not making lenses, but you can go from the camera, all of like the switches and the live recording technologies and anything that you would need to funnel, broadcast, switch, manage that footage outside of the NLE, they make. They make the NLE. And they make the camera, and they make the raw format that it all runs on.
Yeah,
it's very much reminds me of why certain companies that vertically integrate want to vertically integrate.
Yeah,
because when you can own the whole stack like that, there's ways that you can optimize and provide better user experiences and better features that you couldn't necessarily do otherwise.
Well, and they've done that some. Like think about the feature on some of the cameras where you can connect like a Wi-Fi thing to it and upload your proxies from the camera straight to Blackmagic Cloud, then you can pull them down in Resolve and edit, and they've got like this whole live like replay workflow and stuff with that. So they're clearly like already taking some advantage of that. And if more people start choosing their cameras because they're a technology leader in things like sensors, it seems like that would kind of just put more wind in their sails to keep doing more of that kind of stuff.
I think there's always a temptation for vertically integrated companies to then start restricting it so you have to
lock it out.
Yeah, lock out their technologies. And to this point, Blackmagic hasn't really done that. I feel like they would support ProRes RAW if other companies would allow them to.
I kind of get that vibe too, although we have no knowledge on that.
Oh, yeah. But to me, it seems like Blackmagic is trying to play ball with the whole industry because everything in the cinema industry is like that, where they use very standard like batteries and like this kind of pin for that and that kind of connection for this.
Except red,
right? Yeah, good point. But most everything is fairly standardized, and you kind of need it and want it to be in order to be able to, because you want to be able to use your $100,000 lenses with your $100,000 cameras and not have to deal with everything in between.
Yeah.
And I would hope that Blackmagic is still kind of a small-ish player in this world, and I hope that they don't get enough foothold to then try locking things down. I would hate to see that. I would hate to see like Blackmagic turn to the dark side kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I'm thrilled that they have embraced L mount for full frame because it's, you mentioned they don't make lenses. Kind of glad because that means that I have good options for owning one set of lenses to use on like a standard like consumer camera, like something made by Panasonic, but then I can also take all that same stuff and use it on, cinema cameras that seem like they're getting better and better. So like, I think that was a great choice, and I do hope they keep remaining as open as they have on that stuff.
Yeah. I'm very bullish on Blackmagic, and I'm legitimately excited about where they're going. The things that like we've heard about people who are using the 12K and the 17K for projects people are really liking the look off those sensors. And I really hope that like Hollywood filmmakers and people who are indie in Hollywood are start looking to Blackmagic for these cameras, because then you start seeing it in movies and you start seeing those looks in TV shows and kind of just around the industry, and that bolsters Blackmagic a bit as far as a brand that is like cinema related.
Absolutely.
And that clients would want, because they recognize it as, oh, that is a camera that's going to be good quality. You show up to a shoot and you have an Alexa or a Red, and you know how to use it. It's going to get you certain jobs over other ones. Or that's why you might get an FX6, because then you could train out to rent out your services on FX9 or even maybe a Venice, and not too much of a learning curve. And I would love to see Blackmagic start moving in that direction and get that kind of reputation, because the Pixis 12K is only $5,500 and it feels a little bit like, one, the technology is super, super exciting to me as far as what that sensor can do. It's unique and new, and that's like, whenever stacked sensors and stuff came out, and like when the XH2S came out, I was legitimately excited about the possibilities of what's coming off that camera, and that like it's like a new thing. It's like the next step. Yeah. The Pixis 12A kind of gives me the same feelings, and it's like a little bit feels like getting in on the ground floor if things go the way that I assume Blackmagic would want them to, which is their cameras are being used to produce documentaries and TV and movies and more cinema-focused things. And that's why me and you need to get Pixis 12Ks, because we'll get really good at it, and then you go down the road like 2 years, and then it's like, yeah, sure, we can run your shoot because we already know all the Blackmagic stuff, and we're super familiar with the workflow.
Well, and learning how to color grade that footage could end up being useful. So
I think it's a forward thinking skill, and I think there's a future in the Blackmagics.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems to me like thinking of it like smaller scale, like what actually affects us. It feels like eventually you kind of top out on the types of jobs you're going to be doing, with like a normal mirrorless camera, both in terms of people taking you seriously, as well as just like what you really feel like you can shoot on something like that. And I mean, there's plenty of people that make like short films on mirrorless cameras. I'm not saying that you can't do that, but if you want to like hire out your services as like a, camera operator or whatever,
and like, you're showing up with like an A6400.
Yeah. It's like, you need to kind of have a certain level of gear. And I think you're right that there are some workflow things that honestly are just kind of hard to learn without actually using the camera and getting experience with it. I mean, anybody listening to this who has shot with a camera knows that like you use the camera and you kind of like get good at it, and you learn where everything is in the menus. You learn the ins and outs of like how to expose it and all that stuff. And it's hard to learn that stuff watching YouTube videos. Like you need to just like use the thing to know that.
I think that like you kind of can underline that every camera exposes a little differently, and you learn the quirks, and like, okay, I can push it this much, and the scopes on the camera are off by XYZ, and if I use this monitor, then like I know that I'm going to get an image I can grade, or that I am expecting if I shoot it in this way. And it really is uniquely different for every camera. Like where are the zebras going to hit whenever you're shooting in like F-Log2 or whatever, and compared to something else. And like you just have to do it.
Well, and you've got to do that in different situations. Like you're going to learn different things shooting in a dark room versus like bright sunlight outside. And you also like end up learning physical things about the setup. Like, oh, I had to do this shoot outside, and that's when I realized it's super hard to see this LCD screen in bright sunlight. Like that's something I need to plan for next time I shoot. Like there's just a lot you learn whenever you use a camera for a long period of time. And I think that it's kind of easy to forget that stuff and think, oh, well, I've been shooting video for a long time. I can pick up any camera and know how to use it. Like, yeah, maybe to a point, but not at like a high level, not at an expert level.
Yeah, I mean, I occasionally have the occasion to run like an not XH2, that's the wrong thing, an S1 we've ran before, or like the S5 II, and like dealing with Lumix cameras, and it's like, yeah, I know how to shoot video, I know how to do exposures, and I know like all the settings exist, I know what settings exist in these cameras. But whenever you like someone puts a Lumix in my hand and they're like, I don't know how to do this one thing. I'm like, oh yeah, it's just in one of these thousands of menus.
Yeah.
And it just looks different, and it legit you lose time when you don't know.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's one of the benefits of, if we decide we have the means to do it, and if we think we would actually do work that warrants it, I think that's one of the exciting things about getting a camera like that, is just getting that hands-on experience, like building up that skill, because you can't do it overnight. And it's the kind of thing where, like, if you build that up, I think that opens doors that just aren't open to you otherwise. Like, you can't just rent a camera when you need to use it, like, if you want to be an operator or, use it extensively.
Well, I mean, like, you can, but also you kind of have to, ideally, you know what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Or you learn real quick and you just fake it till you make it.
That's true. I don't know. I think it's an interesting question. I would really like to get into doing that kind of stuff, and I think we have good reasons to. We just have to figure out, like, what is our path to using it on projects.
Yeah. Well, I think that the main point of this topic and why I want to talk about it was Blackmagic filed these patents in 2019, and we clearly were working from 19 to 24 before they released even the Ursa 12K and made those announcements. I mean, it was quite a long time in the making, and I think that they're doing some interesting stuff with their sensor design and manufacturing, and are really forward thinking as far as what might be possible.
Yeah.
Kind of approaching it from different ways other than just like stacks on stacks.
Mm-hmm. And it makes you wonder what's, what are they working on now that we'll see in the next, 6 years, as you said.
Yep, for sure. All right. That topic was incredibly long. Let's take a break.
We'll be back in just a moment, but we wanted to let you know that if you'd like to support the show, you can now subscribe to us on Patreon. It helps cover our hosting costs so we can keep the show running, and you might find an occasional behind-the-scenes post on there, like some photos we've taken recently or a mini review of some new gear. If you're interested, you can find us at patreon.com/cameragearpodcast.
Per your protest, this entire next segment is links Daniel sent me.
I did send you a lot of links over the past few weeks.
I don't think these are all links that you sent me.
Probably not.
But these are all cinema lenses.
Yep.
Which I guess is in theme with the last topic.
It seems like there have been a lot of cinema lenses announced recently.
They were all announced.
There was that Cine Gear Expo, and I think a lot of this coincided with that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, take me through the first one, which I think you have written wrong here. It says 12 large format primes, and I think there was 13.
Are there 13?
I thought there was 13.
I thought I saw 12.
I thought there was 13.
So this was kind of funny because I think there was some Sigma news like that day or the day before or something, and we were going to talk about it on this show, and we didn't because I think you said you hadn't had time to look at the lens. I think this was about maybe it was about the 17 to 40 rumor, which that lens actually came out, and it was exactly what was rumored. But regardless, we were talking about Sigma, and I said, oh yeah, did you also see they released 12 primes today? And you had not seen that.
I still have barely seen it.
So yeah, and honestly, I wouldn't say I know much about this either, but this is a set of large format primes. They are all T1.3 E and PL mount.
Yep. Now, I'm sure that you haven't memorized these, but if one of us was better at show planning, we would be playing a game right now in which one of us has to guess all of the prime focal lengths, because they're not what you think that they would be.
Yeah, I agree with that. They're not. But we can't play that game because they're written in the show notes.
I mean, you could look away and I could try to quiz you.
I don't think it would work. I'm looking at it right now. I've got it memorized.
Dang it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, before you read off all of them, I would like to discuss how disappointed I am with the ones that are missing.
Okay. Sure.
I think there should have been a 135.
Yeah, I was actually a little surprised at where that ended. And the only thing I can think of is that T1.3, that lens would probably be huge.
I don't care. Make it big. It goes to 125, which, fine. It's not 135, though.
Yeah.
It's a
strange focal length.
Where's the 85? So help me.
It's not there.
So help me, Daniel. It goes from 75 to 100.
That's what's weird to me about this. They have very few of the focal lengths that you generally think of when you think about, like, I want to shoot this on
85. I want to shoot it on 85.
You can't.
Too bad. At least they put 40 in there.
Yeah. We need to just run through these numbers because we're kind of talking all around it.
Nope. I want to keep listing ones that I would have wanted them to do.
Okay.
There's a 27, which is fine. Where's the 24?
It's not there, Lucas.
It's not a 24. It's not a 24. Just tell me what they got.
So they got an 18.
Weird.
21. Who's ever heard of 21 millimeter lens?
Plenty of people.
When have you ever seen that?
You've seen it. You've seen it around. But like 18 is fine. But I would have expected like 14 or 16 or 15. 18. Yep. Okay.
All right. 25.
Where's the 24?
Yeah, it's just
get rid of both of those. Get rid of the 21. Get rid of the 25. Give me a 24. Why do I have to have two lenses that are that close together?
27. You want 2 more millimeters?
I mean, 27 is like fairly common. 27, 28. I'll allow that. Sure.
Yeah. 32.
Don't know why that exists. Get it out of here.
35.
Yes, that's fine. They can have a 35. Yes. Let's follow your Wes Andersons.
40.
Which the traditional natural focal length that we've also discussed.
Yep.
Why are there not more 40 millimeter lenses?
Yep. Well, there's one here.
Yep.
50.
Fine.
Yeah, obviously. You can't argue that. 65.
Don't need it. That's actually, I see that a lot in cinema lineups. I'm okay with 65. Though I think that it's superfluous.
Yeah. 75.
Get it out of here. Don't need it.
Reasonable on APS-C.
Yeah, I love the 75 1.2.
Yeah.
Especially after the firmware update fixed that autofocus problem that I complained about.
100.
I'll allow it. That's fine.
125.
Already discussed.
Yep.
Unacceptable.
And that's where it ends.
Okay, look. I get that they wanted to release a dozen lenses and that they're all perfect or whatever. It just didn't have to be 12 lenses.
I agree. I don't know why they have so many.
Maybe it's a matter of whenever you're shooting those normal-ish focal lengths and you're trying to frame it up, sometimes you just need, you can't move the camera forward or backward 2 feet. And so you need to switch to a different lens. And so you decided that you need a 21, 25, 27, 32, 35, and 40.
So many lenses.
Why? Like, give me a 20, 24, 35, and 50. Like, give me just 4 lenses.
So I haven't done all the math, but what I'm wondering on this is, so it's a 46.3 millimeter image circle, which I think is slightly bigger than full frame.
Yes, that is true.
And so, and like, obviously it covers Super 35. And so if you imagine having this lens, you can use it on a Super 35, a full frame, or a slightly larger than full frame, like a quote unquote large format.
Yeah, if you're shooting on like a Velociraptor.
A V-Raptor.
Yeah, if you're shooting on a V-Raptor, that is like a 42 and a half, 43 and a half millimeter image circle, I think.
Or like, what is the GFX Eterna?
Slightly bigger. It's way bigger than this. That thing's like it's 65 millimeter or something.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
So you didn't go that big, but like maybe you get slightly bigger than full frame.
Yeah, because like most of your large format cameras, like your cinema large format cameras, are not 3x2. So like they're a slightly different, more wide format. And so you do need to break about 44 millimeters or so as 42 millimeters in image circle. And one of the fancy pants things about these lenses is even though they have electronic contacts in the back so we can communicate what lens it is, there are no correction profiles, which I am a big fan of. It does all of the corrections as much as possible within the lens, and as most of us know, the edges of the lens are where things can get soft. And so if you make your image circle slightly bigger, then you will have your image, like your sensor, as far as like where it lands in the image circle, will kind of disregard the worst parts of the outside of the lens.
That is pretty cool.
So maybe that is the case. Maybe like whenever you're shooting on this, the 125 is more like 135 on an actual like 30 straight up 35 millimeter. Maybe the 75 is more like 85 on an actual 35 millimeter. Yeah. You'd have to go look at the field of view tables to see like how these compare to, say, 35 millimeter full frame photo lenses. And I guess one of us, Daniel, should have done that so we could have provided some real information for listeners instead of just complaining about
that's what I'm saying.
Lengths.
Like I didn't do all the math, but that's That's the most reasonable justification I can think of for why these are so weird. The only other possibility that comes to mind is that if they're doing all the corrections in lens, maybe it just worked out that was like, for example, much easier to do with a 25 millimeter lens rather than 24. I don't know why that would be the case, but like maybe there's something to that.
What do you think about the T1.3?
I mean, I think it's pretty great. Like, I'd rather have more light transmission than I need rather than less. I think that, you know, a lot of times you're not wanting to shoot that wide open just for depth of field reasons, especially in cinema work. I think you don't really see like super wide apertures a lot of times in cinema, but you know, I'd rather have it and not need it. The lenses are usually going to be sharper once you stop them down. So it doesn't stand out to me as bad. I mean, I think it's a pretty good spec.
It's kind of incredible for what these are. Yes, they're $8,300 a piece.
Oh, the price finally came out, huh?
Yeah,
it wasn't there originally.
Rumored as such. I think that at least that's what they are on the website ? Right now. Yeah, $8,300 for the 75 1.3 LF.
Yeah, well, it's pricey.
Because I'm looking up the field of view because somebody didn't do it. Daniel.
So I'm sure you get a discount if you buy all 12 of them, but that's going to break the bank.
But yeah, no, they're pretty stinking expensive. You know, $70,000 or whatever if you're going to buy all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Not like necessarily out of budget for like maybe owner operator type, or
it's going to be a rental.
Even
thing.
studios, probably a rental type thing. But they're still not. I mean, if you're looking at, you know, Cook, like the top of the line Cook primes, those are going to be, you know, can break $20,000, like Panavisions that you can't even buy. I think that these are still, from a cinema standpoint, economical.
Yeah, I agree.
And for what you get, like, they're very well corrected. I think that they, as far as like look, they're not like soft and glowy or anything. They're sharp, contrasty, pretty well controlled as far as chromatic aberrations, pretty well controlled as far as, you know, distortions on the edges. They have all of the like the rings and everything that you need for cinema work. It's these are really good lenses, and they're really, really fast.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I'm not going to be buying one, but I think it seems like a pretty good option from Sigma. Like, price seems reasonable. You know, I think Sigma is a trustworthy brand that has a really good reputation. And you certainly have a lot of options on focal length. So, you know, maybe not the exact ones you want, but a lot of choices there for sure.
I also wrote down here that I couldn't get excited about these.
Yeah. Is it just because they're expensive, or you just like it's just kind of meh?
I mean, I think that they're great, and that if I needed cinema primes, I would be strongly considering these because I like what Sigma does and I like what Sigma makes. They didn't make any for L mount.
Yeah, that was kind of weird, I thought.
Fine. I think that it's because they're not mirrorless lenses. Like, they're E and PL, which have that larger flange back, but that's traditionally what you want for most cinema stuff.
Unless it's Blackmagic.
I mean, you can get an L to PL adapter,
yeah,
and that's not a big deal. I think that these being like, PL is what you need. If you're going to buy a cinema lens, you basically just buy it in PL.
Yeah, because that way you can adapt it to whatever camera you're using.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm surprised they didn't. I guess like it doesn't matter. I guess the lenses or the camera has LPL, and then the lens is PL. Is that right? The second L is for locking. Yeah. I don't know if you have to have, if the lens has to be locking also in order to lock it on.
Good point. I think I don't think I've ever heard of an LPL lens, so I do think that's just on the mount side.
Okay, cool. Well, these are pretty stinking sweet, and go get some Magic Primes. The other ones on this list are in the same family, but they were announced but not released, and that's the two zooms that go along with these primes.
Well,
is that correct?
No, because I mean
they're not ASU. They're not like
exactly. Yeah,
part of the same family.
And I expect these. So let's take a step back. So Sigma announced the development of two autofocus. That's the other difference, I think. I don't think the ASU ones are.
They are not.
Cine lenses. They have a 28 to 45 T2 and a 28 to 105 T3. Those are both lenses that exist as photo lenses, and they're basically announcing that they're going to be making Cine versions of those lenses. So to me, that feels very different from the Cinema Primes. I would expect these to be way closer in price to the photo lenses. Like, you know, like that 28 to 45 is like a $1,400 lens, the photo one. And I'm not saying the Cinema one's going to be that same price, but I would bet it's going to be a lot closer to that price than it is to $8,300.
Yeah, that's probably true. I would expect that they aren't going to be exact copies of the photo version. I would think there is going to be quite a bit of retooling in order to adapt these for like cinema use and that sort of thing. But I would expect them to maybe they're double the price, or like I think what the 28 to 45 is $1,500.
Yeah, it's like $1,400 or $1,500.
I would
like
expect these to probably be closer to $3,000.
Yeah. So it looks like they're kind of like rehousing it. It has all the the gears and stuff for using in a Cine setup with follow focus. They're obviously rating them at T-stops rather than f-stops, which again is a common cinema thing. And they've kind of been unclear about what else is going to change, but it does sound like they're going to be changing something about them to make them more cinematic, whatever that means.
I think both of those lenses were pretty neat as far as available options, like being able to get an f1, f2.8, or in this case a T3 from 28 to 105. That's a really useful lens. Cool to see it in for a cinema application.
Yeah. I mean, I had considered getting I looked at the 28 to 105 as an option when I was picking L-mount lenses, didn't ultimately get it. The 28 to 45, I feel like I'm not that interested in that as a photo lens, but having that as a cinema lens to me is a lot more interesting, because I do think that's a good focal range for like A-roll, shooting like an interview or for a lot of cinema stuff. So I don't know. I'll be curious to see these when they come out. It sounds like they are making them for L and EF mount, so like it would be an option for me. But I guess we'll see what they look like.
Yeah, I guess so. Cool. I think that's what this link is. So I looked up a Sony 85mm G Master 1.8. I don't think the f-stop necessarily matters. The field of view for that on a Sony 35mm sensor is 29 degrees, whereas the Sigma, I hope I'm saying that right, 75mm 1.3 Cine lens on a full frame sensor is a 27 degree field of view. Now, if you put it on an Arri LF and shoot it open gate, it's a 27.5 field of view.
So still not quite that 29.
So not the same.
Not the same.
And I'm not going to look up any of the other ones. All right, let's talk about these maybe more interesting because of price, maybe not. Seven Artisans came out with Cine Primes.
Yes, they did. More Cine Primes.
More Cine Primes. How many of these are there, Daniel?
Well, it looks like quite a few. I could say 5, or what is that? No, that's not 5. That's 7.
Yep.
But I could also say 14.
Oh, because they came in white?
Yep, you can get them in either color.
Oh, I'll obviously always get the white ones.
Yep. These are their Infinite series. That's in all caps.
That's correct, yep. And you can buy them in packs of, I think it's like 3, 1, or all of them. And then if you get the packs of, what is it, like the 3, you can kind of get, this handful or that handful, and they overlap.
Yeah. I mean, they're full frame lenses, so you got to have a pretty big hand.
Sure.
If you want to hold a handful of those lenses. Yeah.
I think that the set of, the set of 2 is like 2,200, and the set of 3 is 3,000, and the set of 7 is like 5,500 or something like that.
Definitely more affordable than the Sigma ones.
Yeah, I think they're like $900 a piece if you buy them individually.
They also have much more familiar focal lengths. Looks like 16, 24, 35, 50, 85, 105, and 135. Like that's just like right up the middle, like the exact focal lengths you'd expect.
Yeah, nothing strange there.
But
it's almost like if you ship these focal lengths, you don't have to make 12 of them.
Almost. You can get by with 7. The one difference here, though, is that these are not all the same aperture.
They're not all the same aperture. They don't have the same number of blades. I think they're all the same caps, and they have all the same markings, and they have the same gears on them. They're just like, it's what you would expect out of a set of budget primes. I think that they're like fairly decent. They scratch the itch. They do the thing. But they're like a little soft around the edges. They have a little bit of chromatic aberration. The wide ones have a little more focus breathing than maybe that you want. They're not all perfectly matched across the range. I saw one review where like the 85 compared to the 24 had slightly different renderings of magenta.
Weird.
And so it's like,
I feel like that's a downside for cinema lenses.
yeah, you want them to be like perfectly matched. These are like mostly fine, but like they're $800 cinema lenses, right?
Mm.
It's like you're going to get different looking bokeh between them because they have different aperture blades. They're not the same speed all the way across the line. And so you're going to be limited as far as like, oh, we switched from one to another. Now I have more pronounced grain in this shot for between these two because like I can't run them at the same T-stop. It's like, it's fine. I think they're exactly what you would expect out of an $800 lens, maybe even more. Like for a budget Cine lens, I like these as an option. They're not like Cook lenses. They're not they're not like the Sigma ones we just talked about in any way.
Yeah, and I think for me that makes it a little bit harder to get excited about it because I think when I think about why should I shoot something on a set of cinema primes, the things I think about are these lenses are going to be very consistent in handling in terms of like I'll be able to set the aperture the same on all the lenses. Like they'll be the same size. I can use the same filters, like all that. I can use the same focus pulling stuff. Like I expect that. And I expect the look to basically be the same between them. Like to me, those are kind of the big benefits of using cinema primes. And I mean, obviously I understand why these can't do everything an $8,000 lens can do from Sigma. But it does make them a little bit less useful, I guess, in my opinion.
Yeah, generally agree. I think it's still worthwhile, though, if like you kind of need the kit. I think that, like, if I was seriously getting into cinema lenses, and I mean, like, budget's always the thing, right? It's like, how much can you actually afford? And like, what are you going to rent versus what are you going to buy? And maybe like you buy some stuff like this so you can have like 3 Cine lenses or something in your kit, and then you rent the good stuff whenever you need the good stuff, but you're experienced using something similar.
Do you think that's what you would do if you were actually getting into this stuff?
I think that I would be more inclined to maybe, I mean, like, this is probably not true, and I'm more of just like, I think when push came to shove, I would buy something that was more in my budget. I really like the Cooke SP3 mirrorless primes, and I would be more inclined to spend, no, I wouldn't. This is not true. I would be more inclined to spend $12,000 on a set of 3 Cooke SP3 primes because blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, seeing as we were kind of debating earlier, like, should we buy one Pixis camera? I think you're maybe a ways off from buying Cooke SP3 primes.
I think that these are fine. There's Rokinon, there's Suri, there's what's Blazer. All of, like, there's Viltrox even have all kind of released cinema primes within this range, and I would do like so much research to figure out which ones kind of better fit what I want.
Well, and that's what I was going to say is I think there is a lot of competition in this space among, affordable cinema primes.
Yeah, and
I don't know yet whether these are better or worse than that. It's kind of just another option. I've generally heard good things about 7 Artisan, but I think they're entering a tough market just because there's so much competition.
So I guess I'm 100% on board, and I would be inclined to basically check, test, rent kind of at least a lens from like all of the various manufacturers within that price brand and kind of like find the one that gives like the look and the warmth that I'm looking for out of a cinema lens.
If this was a highly funded podcast, we would get a like 50 millimeter prime from all of these cheap brands and test them side by side.
Oh, could you imagine? Just send the emails, Daniel. They'll give them to us.
Just send the emails.
Just send the emails. Point is, if money no object, which it is. I mean, if money went object, we're just going to buy the Panavisions because you can't. They're worth infinite money. I still feel like the Cooke SP3's dollar for lens, because they're like $4,500 lenses, which is expensive, but it's not crazy. It's not like $8,000 or $20,000, and you're getting Cooke optics. And I think that, I mean, Canon had did the same thing, right? They released those EF cinema or R mount cinema lenses to go kind of with the C400 and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they're basically that $4,000, $3,000 price range, which is kind of where it's like you can buy the cheap stuff that's under 2,000. You can buy the mid-range stuff that's like 3 to 5,000, and then there's the renting stuff, which is 10 to infinity thousand.
Right.
And I think as far as like the one step up lenses, those are the ones that I'd want.
Yeah. I mean, I think a little bit there you're going on brand. Like you would feel good
Daniel,
about using a Cook lens.
They're Cook lenses. Daniel, it's like shooting on a Leica.
Shooting on a Leica.
It's like that. I'm not saying it is.
Yeah.
Everyone put your pens down.
No, they've already emailed us. Too late.
Jeez, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I did mean it's nothing. It's nothing like shooting on a Leica. It's better. Kidding. What else here? Oh, one more thing, Daniel. There's an article on Cine. There's this company called or their website is Old Fast Glass. I don't think that's the name of the company. Vintage Primes, maybe? No.
That sounds like a
Ancient
category.
Optics. What's the name of this stinking company?
Powered by Squarespace.
Oh, Old Fast Glass Cinema Primes and Prime Rentals. Okay, whatever. Maybe I should click on my other link. This is really good radio. So there's a company out there that rehouse lenses. And TLS, I guess, is the name of the company. And they we talked about in the past the Canon K3 lenses. Like we did a whole legendary lens, K35. We did a whole legendary lens segment on the K35s. And why they're super duper cool. This TLS company rehouses them. They'll go get those Canon lenses and then rehouse them for cinema use and resell them.
That's cool.
And they do that for a lot of different sets of primes. It's not just the K35s. There's a number of Arri Masters, Cook Pancros, a lot of different stuff that they'll do. And they've recently announced that they are going to rehouse Fuji EBC primes,
which I'm not familiar with.
So the Fuji EBC primes were originally M42 screw mount lenses, and they were Zeiss and their coatings were, they were the thing.
Yeah,
back in the 70s, right?
I do remember us talking about that.
And Fuji's EBCs were kind of like a more mass market version as far as something that could almost compete with the Zeiss coatings. And they're kind of a cult lens. I mean, they're probably going to end up on a legendary lens at some point. And, some people like the way that they flare, they like the softness, blah, blah, blah. And now you can buy a whole set of them housed for cinema use.
Huh.
It's $70,000.
So it's do you want those or do you want those Sigma ones that we just talked about?
Pretty much. I mean, this one's, you get 19, 24, 28, 35, 50, 70, 100, and 135.
Hey, those are some more recognizable.
Some are, some aren't. I mean, you can't get 75, but you can get 70.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. I think it's interesting.
Are you into those things where it's because I mean the whole point of that is that it's a certain look, right?
Yep.
You're not buying that for technical accuracy, or it's very different from the Sigma stuff for that reason. But I mean, it's kind of any of these rehoused older lenses. It feels like it's all about the style or the look. I
mean, I'm super into the idea of shooting on K35 lenses, and these Fuji EBCs are just Fujifilm versions, and so
clearly
I think it's awesome. I think that there's a little bit of specialness to those old lenses and the way that the glass ages, and I don't know.
Yeah,
I like it whenever people take old things and then make them usable again.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I was looking on eBay for a 50mm EDC M42 screw mount Fuji lens, and what I was finding on eBay, at least, which I don't know, maybe I was looking at the wrong thing, because if you're looking for old EF lenses and you're trying to find the ones that were actually K35 lenses, but for the photo version, you have to be really specific as far as like the numbers on the lens and like this version was and this version wasn't.
Yeah,
and sometimes
yeah.
whenever on eBay or resellers, they'll try to like tell you it's one thing and it isn't.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow,
yeah.
this is a really cheap version of this lens. It's because it's not that lens.
Makes sense.
I was seeing these things for like $100 to $300.
It does sound suspiciously cheap.
Especially if they're selling the rehoused for $70,000.
Yeah.
But it may be that they're all in premium condition and they're doing the rehousing of a whole set of lenses and the refurbishment, and it could just be the manual labor cost. But if I'm able to scoop up a Fuji EDC like 50 millimeter or 35 millimeter, probably 35 because I don't actually have a 35 for my film cameras, I could get that in a M42 screw mount.
Be pretty cool.
And then I would have two M42 screw mounts lenses, which means that I would have to get an M42 Pentax film camera.
It's all part of the plan.
Mm-hmm. You know, with those screw mount cameras, there's some amount of variability in how close the lens is to the focal plane because you have to screw it in.
Sure. That makes sense.
And so bayonet mounts are more consistently sharp compared to screw mounts.
I mean, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I guess surely people like shim them or something to deal with that. That's how you could solve that problem. Right.
Yeah. I'd be like, I guess you would measure maybe. I mean, could you imagine like taking a bunch of test photos to try to figure out, and then making sure you get the order right? I guess you would take a picture of the measurement. So like, this is where I set the lens, and then you take a picture of that, and then you can see if it's sharp.
Because it occurs to me the problem is this is a film camera, so you have to develop it to see that outcome.
Oh boy, could you imagine?
Yeah.
I'm sure like you just measure. You
But
get
if
calipers or something.
If you were using the same lens every time, you could pretty easily figure out what like how to shim that lens to lock in like at the right amount every time. But I can see how that would be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Funny.
I'm sure that it's probably not actually a problem, but I mean, no, there's some level of variability there.
Yeah.
There's still like two more lenses on this list.
There's so
Actually,
many
this one
lenses.
we've already covered. I think really the only other one here is a 17 to 40 f1.8.
Yeah. Do you want to cover that real quick?
I mean, we talked about it whenever we talked about the rumors, and the rumors were basically right.
Yeah.
And so
I think
we need
seeing the price maybe is interesting, but I mean, really what I want to know is like, do you think this lens is interesting?
Yeah, so the last subject here is Lucas and all his standard zooms. Is there room for this? And my answer was no, it's huge, LOL.
Yeah.
But it's not actually huge. I do want to run through kind of maybe like a little bit now that we know everything, which is it breathes, but not terribly, and breathes less at 40 millimeters compared to 17 millimeters. It's 1.8 like we thought. The autofocus is good or whatever. $919. It sharpens up pretty good around f4. The edges are like maybe a little soft, but nothing worse than what we're seeing in other lenses. It is way more corrected than the EF version from all those years ago because it's a modern lens, and like that's what they do on mirrorless to get them smaller. So is what it is. This lens is basically a 17 to 70 in size.
That is big, but I had that EF Sigma 18 to 35. And that lens felt really big.
Well,
now,
yeah,
part of why it felt big to me was because I was comparing it to all my Micro Four Thirds lenses, which are tiny.
I mean, the 18 to 35 was roughly the size of a full frame 24 to 70.
I don't know if
F4.
I don't think it was maybe an F4. Yeah, because it's not. It's definitely not the diameter of a f2.8.
No,
24 to 70, but it is a big lens.
But like I use the Tamron 17 to 70 because. I mean, like if you're an APS-C shooter and you're looking for a standard zoom, that is one of the best options out there, despite all of
us always complaining about it.
Despite how mid that lens is, it's still really fine.
it's not just fine; it's really fine.
It's like it's super okay.
I mean, I haven't sold it yet.
Really not bad. I can't do it. I can't give it a compliment.
I mean, having used that 18 to 35 on, and now granted, I was using it on the GH5, so I was getting the different crop factor, right? Like than what you would get with this. But I mean, it's a really useful focal length. And if what you're doing with your camera is shooting video, shooting like A-roll type stuff, I think it's a really useful focal length. And I think having that light gathering capability is really helpful on APS-C.
So the 17-70 is 525 grams, which is the exact same weight as this lens.
Interesting.
And if we were comparing the dimensions, and I'll do it in millimeters, I guess, whatever. We're talking 117.9 versus 119.3. 1 millimeter difference in length. So it's a 4.5. It's a little more than 4.5. It's 4.7, 4.6 inches long. 4.5 inch long, which on APS-C for Fuji is kind of long.
It's a sizable lens.
Not terrible, but like wouldn't want anything longer without calling it a telephoto. And this is definitely not a telephoto. Anyways, both 67 millimeter filter threads, both 2.9 inches. I just switched units. The diameter is 72.9 compared to 74.6. So like one millimeter difference in diameter. You're probably not even
going to notice.
1 millimeter difference in length.
Yeah.
It is the size of a 17-70.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was that close.
Which is like, I don't love it. That would be one of the detractors for me, because I found that for all the ways that I use my camera, whenever I had the camera rigged out in like Cine mode with like the whole rig and everything, I liked the 17-70 on it because it felt proportional and it wasn't a problem. This is an internal zoom, at least. I guess it's not extending, so that's nice.
That's a difference.
But when was just like put it on my photo camera and like nothing else, like either the X-H2S or the XC5, it just felt so long, and like I would stick it in my bag and I felt like it was too long for everywhere I wanted to put it, and it was like the size was kind of a problem.
Yeah.
I would not, for like a standard zoom. For me, I made the change. Like I would rather the 16-55 standard lens with the aperture ring and it be smaller compared to having the extra, 15 millimeters of reach for something that was way bigger.
I think, if what you're doing is like a normal handheld camera, either photo or video, I would not choose this lens. I think I would choose the 16-55.
Well, I'm talking about like 17-70, right? But for this, where we're talking a 17-40, so
you're losing a lot of focal length on that end.
You're losing quite a bit, but you get 1.8. That maybe is interesting. Like I would consider potentially that trade-off, because like if you're talking about a 16-55 as like your standard zoom on APS-C at 2.8, like that feels like the perfect middle of the road. To me, I would rather have that than a 17-70 2.8.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But going the other way, 17-40, 1.8. I mean, that's like a whole stop.
Yeah.
That's like a whole stop, Daniel. It's like a whole stop. Maybe.
Yeah. I still feel like for me, if I'm taking photos, I probably wouldn't want that. I'd rather have either the 16-55 or for the wider stuff, maybe I'd want to use a prime if I really need wide aperture, just because I agree with you. I think the lens is a little big for just kind of like walking around with your camera. But I think if you're thinking about more like I'm going to be shooting video with this on a tripod, or I'm going to have this in a rig or whatever, suddenly I feel like the size doesn't matter quite as much. And I think the 1.8 makes this pretty interesting.
I think it does. This one has an aperture ring, so you're not losing the aperture ring.
I didn't realize that.
And I think that it's clickless. Unless you get it for RF mount, then it is not unclickable, and it's not an aperture ring, it's a control ring.
Okay. I think that's an RF lens thing, so I guess that makes sense.
Do I need this lens, Daniel?
It surprises me that you would ask that. I think it depends on whether you're going to move into L mount or not.
You're right. I have to spend all my money on the S1R Mark II.
Yes.
And therefore, I don't need this lens.
I think if I was sticking with Fuji, I would be pretty interested in this.
I like that it's 1.8. I like it for an A-roll lens, but I'm such a sucker for primes.
Yeah.
I would still reach for a prime. I would still reach for 3 primes over this lens.
Well, price-wise, you're not getting 3 primes for this lens.
No, $919. Like, what a deal.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, if you it's kind of big, but if you're not having to carry the 16, the 20, let's see, what is it? 17 to 40. So it'd be like a 16 and a 35 maybe, or the 16, the 23, and the 35.
Yeah,
would
potentially.
probably be what you would be carrying. You could just like leave all three of those lenses and bring only this one, and that's a lighter kit generally. Even if they're the F2 version, like the F2 versions are really stinking small of those lenses. Like the 18, the 23, and the 35 F2s are just like super tiny little lenses. But like this would be faster than those at 1.8, but then price compare probably about the same.
Yeah,
if you're buying the F2 versions,
Mm-hmm.
even still, I don't know. It's pretty good. I think it's a pretty good release. I think I'm glad that they finally came out with this.
Me too.
Whenever they came out with the 20, was it the 28 to 45?
Yeah, but that was the full frame lens.
Full frame lens. It felt like, oh, Sigma doesn't care about APS-C anymore.
Yeah.
And then here we are. They finally came out with the original 16 to 35 was famous.
18 to 35. Yeah, I was about to say that lens. I don't know if it was the lens itself or just that it came out during a time when a lot of people were shooting on the GH5, but like specifically that setup, GH5 with a Metabone speed booster, 18 to 35.
That lens was like relatively cheap. It was like $600, but I think it's because before that it was an EF lens where everyone was pretty much shooting on crop unless you had a 5D Mark II or whatever. Like everyone was shooting on crop, and this gave you the look of a full frame 2.8 lens on an APS-C sensor.
Yeah. So I think
then there was like a bunch of them just lying around, so like you could pick them up for your GH5.
Yeah, and I think it was like it was there at the right time. But I mean, people really liked it. So I think, quality wise, I think it was a really good lens. And I'm curious with this one to see if it captures the same magic.
I've been wanting 1.8 zooms on APS-C because I always want the fastest lenses I can get to make the most out of the light, because like you're losing a stop on the sensor already.
Well, it's nice to have the trade-off, right? Like one reason you get APS-C is to potentially get cheaper lenses, but especially to get smaller lenses. And if you're going on a trip or something, it's really nice that you can get like some tiny little prime that works well with your camera. Because I have a bunch of full frame L mount stuff now. It's all pretty big, like a 50 millimeter L mount prime is still like a pretty sizable lens. And so it's nice with APS-C that you can get small stuff. But what I think is interesting about lenses like this is that like now you have the choice where if you are in a situation where you don't care quite as much about that portability, like say you're shooting a wedding or something, it's nice to have the option to trade that portability for more light gathering capability. Like, I guess to me, it kind of bridges some gaps with full frame stuff.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that it allows you to do more with APS-C and kind of, like you said, bridge the gap a little bit, whereas you don't necessarily have to, like, it's there when you need it, but then you can, plan around the smaller package for like most other things.
Yeah, it's nice having that flexibility for sure.
Yeah, and like comparatively, if we're looking at, I don't know, say like an L mount, this is actually way smaller, but like an L mount 50 millimeter lens is the same diameter, but it's like 3.2 inches, like a 50 millimeter 1.8. So like this is in the range of what you would expect out of like full frame lenses. And it's kind of the size of a full frame lens. It's way smaller than the non-mirrorless version. I don't think, like from an APS-C standpoint, you're compromising that much on size.
Yeah.
I'm just very much accustomed to the Fuji lens size where they are so adamant about.
It's got to fit in that box.
It's got to fit in the box on the guy's desk, which is like 4.5 inches wide, and so it's 4.6. It doesn't fit.
Yeah. Well, and if I'm shooting on Fuji, that's ideally what I want. Like I have the 50 to 140 and the 17 to 70 for those use cases. But if I'm thinking about taking my camera on trips or something, I want a smaller lens. Like I prefer the things like the 16 to 55. So I just think it's nice to have those options, and it's cool that Sigma came out with this to give APS-C shooters like the option of getting that more light gathering if they don't need to care about the size.
Yeah, there's so many options now. I feel like, you go back to 2018, there was like the 18 to 55 and there was the 16 to 55 for Fuji, and like those were your only standard zooms, and they were both fine. Like they were actually both really good. But it kind of was like, we don't really have more options than that, and everything else you have to adapt. And now you have like two standard zooms from Sigma that are both great. One's super small and portable, and one's super big and fast. And you got the monstrosity from Tamron. And then Fuji themselves have released whatever's like, there's the 16 to 80 f4.
That's right.
And so you have like slightly slower, but even more range if you need it.
Yep.
There's so many options as far as like standard zooms for X mount now. It's just like the whole world's available to you.
So many choices.
So many choices.
How will you ever pick? You're just going to have to buy them all.
No, I mean, I'm set. I have the first party 16 to 55, and apparently that's the last Fuji lens I'm ever going to own, because you're going to make me switch to L mount.
And you still have that 18 to 50, which I guess is potentially good for travel. Do you still own that?
Yeah, I still own that.
Yeah, I still kind of think you should sell that lens.
No one's going to buy it from me for anything. They're going to give me like $30.
I got more than that when I sold mine, but it wasn't that much.
Yeah, but like I have to sell that one and my 23 and then buy the 23 1.4 again.
Yep.
That's really what I
should
should
still
do.
run that sale, man. $760 for a new one.
I feel like I should just do it.
What are they used?
What are they used?
Yeah.
Same price.
Yeah.
Exactly the
So
same
you get
price.
a new one for the same price as used.
Yeah.
I know that makes it less of a good deal because we're usually fine with buying used lenses. But
I'm just gonna think about it, and then I guess I could sell my 18 to 50 and my other 23 1.4 to recoup the cost. How much? What's the? How much could you buy an 18 to 50 right now on B&H Build? Are they running like a sick deal where they just give it to you for free?
Without looking, I'm gonna guess. So I think it's a $500 lens normally.
Holy cow, man! This thing's $670 now. Did it go up in price?
That has for sure gone up in price. There's no way it was that expensive.
No,
when I got it.
I remember buying it for like $3 and a favor.
I paid at most $550 for that lens when I bought it.
You can get $50 off if you put it in your cart and use your Payboo. So it's $600.
Yeah. Remember when I sold you that Viltrox 75, that lens had also gone up like $100. So
yeah.
I guess, I don't know if it's tariffs or what, but prices have definitely gone up on this stuff.
All right. I'm going to do some checking, and I may be the proud owner of a new Fuji 23 1.4 WR before the end of the weekend.
Oh, man. Tune in next time to find out whether Lucas is expanding his collection or not.
I would be selling lenses to make room for it, so I'd be down two and then up one.
Oh, I'm glad you're already working on that explanation.
So it would be like totally fine. And I think we've already discussed this, Daniel. I shot the entire country of Japan only on a 23 millimeter lens. I have established that I need the better one.
If you say so.
It has to resolve the 40 megapixels. I'm not getting all the megapixels.
Not getting all the megapixels. Need more megapixels.
Yeah.
That's it for the show today. Thanks for joining us, and if you liked it, tell a friend so they can check it out too. You can find out more about the show at www.cameragearpodcast.com, and you can find us on Twitter at CameraGearPod. We'll be back with more next week.